We are going to do a practice session. Today I will just introduce you some things, but you will play around with some simple models, and I will explain you why you need to use simple models for interpreting your interferometric data, because some of you have some interferometric data, some of you don't have, so I will just record you some things that were explained this morning, and explain you why you need to go through model fitting first to do the interpretation of your data. So the first thing is, okay, this was already said, what is the visibility? So it's a normalized number, which is in fact a complex number, which goes to 1 when the spatial frequency go to 0. And it's an application of the Van Citter-Zernike theorem. And what you have to remember, and you will have it all along the summer school, that it has to do with Fourier transform. So it corresponds to the Fourier transform of the image of your object. And this is due to the fact that you measure with an interferometer, you're sensitive to this Fourier transform information. So today we will talk about this, V, and tomorrow we will talk about these coordinates, because you will see tomorrow that it's also important to care about where you measure your visibility in the UV plane. So this is, just to recall again, so that's image of a binary star. And here, if you do the Fourier transform, you have an imaginary part and a real part of this binary star. You see that you have some modulation, but you can also display this the Fourier transform of your object as amplitude and phase. So in the amplitude, this here you see clearly the stripes corresponding to the binary star, and in the phase also you have some modulation. And what you have to remember always is that you have this cutoff frequency, so that's for a single dish telescope, and that basically means that everything which is outside this cutoff frequency is no information. Okay, so you see that in this case you have some information outside, and this is because this image is already some kind of image reconstruction. It's a result of image reconstruction process. When you do what we call speckle masking, which is another technique to do high angular resolution on single dish telescope, in fact you make a discretization of this UV plane, okay, of the plane of the Fourier transform. So you measure the visibility and phase at some discrete points in this Fourier plane. So that's what exactly is doing an interferometer, except that you do not have many points, but you have just 2, sorry, which is correspond to the one telescope here and one telescope there, and it corresponds to the Fourier, to the spatial frequency probed by the baseline of the interferometer. Okay, so when you use an interferometer, you do not have as many points in the UV plane as here, but you just have one measurement at spatial frequency 0 here, which is the flux of the object, and one measurement at the spatial frequency b over lambda. So what you have to remember is that the interferometer measures just very few spatial frequency at one time. Okay, so it's very different from a single dish telescope. So that's the VLTI, example of interferometer. So you have big telescope here and small telescope there. And maybe, did you show it already?
No.
No? So it's made of 4 8-meter telescopes, which are fixed, plus this small telescope, which are 1.8 meter telescope, so quite big still. Which can be moved on these rails that you see in front here. And in this building here, you have all the instruments, so where you make the recombination of the light. So to recall again, you will have a lot of recalls in this summer school. When you have the star, you have the wavefront, which comes from infinity, so it's basically straight. When you have two separate telescopes, you have a problem of projection on the sky, which makes the coherent part of the light not just in the middle of your telescopes. So basically, for the first interferometers which were built, you had the instrument which was moving when the sky was rotating. What we do today is kind of different. We input a delay by a carriage with mirrors, which is called a delay line, and you have a fixed instrument, which is then it's easier to build a better instrument and better quality instrument in this case. So you see that for interferometers, not only the telescopes are important, but also these two subsystems. So I just show you photos, but you will have lot of explanation and lot of talks about that. So that's what look like the delay lines in the VLTI. So you see you have these rails which are 50 meters long, and this carriage which has mirrors on top. And this is, in the case of Shara, you have basically the same. You don't see the carriage here, but you see the rails, which are also 100 meters, something like that. Sorry? 46 meters long. And for the instrument, so it's a VLTI school, so I show the VLTI instruments here. You have this one which is not working anymore, but you will probably read a few papers about, with it. So it's Vinci, which was combining two telescopes, MIDI combining two telescopes, and Amber 3 telescope, but I think that Antoine will talk more about this in the specific VLTI talk. To go back to co-phasing, that's what happens when you have a perfect interferometer without atmosphere. If you have the atmosphere, then you have a problem because your wavefront is not flat anymore. And then you have fluctuations with time of the flatness of the wavefront, which makes basically the phase of the wavefront varying with time. And that's a big problem, because then you have the fringes which move around, and then you lose completely the phase information. So one way to overcome this is to use what we call a fringe tracker. So it's a feedback loop between the fringe measurement and the delay line to stabilize the fringes. And if you use large telescopes, you have also the problem that on each telescope, this corrugated wavefront also affects your the single telescope. So you need also adaptive optics to correct for this in each telescope. On top of that, you have not a perfect interferometer, so you have failures, whatever failures you can imagine, you will have it on your interferometer. One which is a big problem, for example, is the telescope vibrations, and a lot of other issues which can affect also your measurement. So you see that you have a lot of adverse effects in interferometry. So basically, to summarize, first you measure visibility just in one point in this UV plane, and you don't have the phase. Okay, so you just have access to the amplitude of this visibility function. I think there will be a talk about how to overcome partly this problem, because in fact you have access to some phase information, but you lose a big part of it. So you have closure phase, for example, to get a phase information with 3 telescopes. Phase referencing, if you observe 2 separate stars and take one as a phase reference. And then differential phase, which is wavelength dependence of the phase. So you can reconstruct part of the phase information this way. Okay, so today we are going to talk about what you can do with this kind of measurements. So always remember, interferometry is a very expensive technique which gives you very few data. Okay? So that's example of measurements which have been published. So that's used measurement. So here, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 measurements. Okay? So that's all you get from one or two observations on a star. Okay? So in this way, you have the fact that model fitting is attractive with quotes, because basically it's better than nothing when you cannot do anything else. Okay? And it's realistic for today's interferometry. And it's also better to do model fitting because you can compare what you know, which is basically an image of your object, with what you measure, which is this Fourier transform of this image. Okay, so let's see what you can fit to your data for interferometry. So one first step you will do is so-called ad hoc modeling. So you will basically use very simple geometrical shapes to try to see what general shape have your object. And for that you are helped because the Fourier transform has some properties. Add many different ad hoc models because the Fourier transform is a linear operator, so you can adopt several sources, so if you have a multiple source. You have the convolution property, which is basically that if you take an object and blur it, then it's easy to compute in the Fourier plane because you just multiply by some function. And then you have an easy way to shift your object in the image plane, and you have the relation to the Fourier transform of it. And then similarity tells you how to shrink and to expand your object and the relation you have with the Fourier transform. Okay, so let's go to really what you can model on your object. Okay, simple thing is a point source. Okay, so the Fourier transform of this is 1. Okay, not difficult. If you put it off axis, then you add up a phasor which is related to the position on the plane of sky. Up to now, it's not very difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Could you explain to us, how you could recover with a phase measurement? How would you do to know the position of this object, unlike object?
Okay, I present this just because it's useful for a binary star.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if you just have closure phase or differential phase, you cannot have access to this. Because if you add up this one and that one, because you are allowed to do that with the linearity of Fourier transform, then you have a binary system. Okay, so that's a very simple model for asymmetric object, and basically the one with the least number of parameters. So you have the Fourier transform of it, which is just a cosine. Okay, you have a modulation here, and if you look at how it looks like, so this is a binary star from the beginning. So you have some stripes. So this is the same, but with more colorful. And in the UV plane, so you see that if you have a binary system, if you measure with the baseline which is on the direction of the binary star, you will see this modulation. But if you measure it with the baseline which is perpendicular to your binary system, you will basically see nothing. Okay, so here you have already information how to select your UV points to observe a binary system. Okay, so an example of observations, so that's actual observations with the VLTI. So that's a binary star where you clearly see, so these are measure points and this is a model. You clearly see that you have this nice modulation of the signal, and this allows to detect companions to a star. So here, with this observation, the flux ratio is about 5%. So the companion is 5% of the main star flux. And you see also that, okay, in this particular case, you have a slight decrease of visibility versus larger baselines. And this tells you that one of the stars is slightly resolved. But this is not always the case, and you can have binary stars where you have strong modulations everywhere. And in this case, in this particular case, so it's a star which is called Gamma Vel, you have, if you look at the spectrum, you see that the spectrum has also a lot of emission lines. And in fact, in this system, one star is emitting all the lines, and one star has a completely flat spectrum. And if you look this, so the visibilities here and phase measurements here, you see that all the variations you see here come from the fact that the flux ratio between the two stars is varying with wavelength. And then this gives you this big change in visibility. So you can also do this kind of characterization of binary systems, even if you have quite a few measurements, but with a large spectral coverage. Okay. So a second type of shape you use a lot to model an object is okay, Gaussian distribution. That's for smooth, basically smooth shape of an object. So Fourier transform of a Gaussian is a Gaussian, so that's quite easy to compute. And okay, nothing to say here. So to see examples, so just to show you that it's really used, I mean, in real published papers. That's a paper which was published on a B Brackety star. So these are stars which have a dust disk around the main star. And in this paper, the people used Gaussian shape to model the disk, which has a smooth shape along in the image of the disk. And they showed that the shape in the cable, so this is at 2 microns, is much different than the shape in the N band, so which is mid-infrared. Another example of using Gaussians to model objects. This is on an AGN star, so it's not a star, AGN. So you see you can also do non-stellar astrophysics with interferometry. And this is, they use the Gaussian profiles to interpret the data on this specific object. Basically what they showed here in this object is that you cannot model the object with just one Gaussian shape, but you need one big Gaussian shape to explain the large structure and one small Gaussian shape to explain the inner part of the AGN. Another shape you will use a lot is a uniform disk, because it's easy to model a star surface with a uniform disk. Because basically, when you have a star, you have the photosphere which sets a very sharp limit, and outside, basically, the flux is almost zero. So you will have a good approximation of your stellar image with a uniform disk. So the Fourier transform of it is a Airy function, okay? And if you look at the visibility curve, it's a visibility curve with bumps. So in fact, you have at a moment the visibility which go below zero, okay, which means the modulus stays positive, but the phase flips 180 degrees. And here it means also that you have visibility, so the amplitude of the visibility, which go to zero, exactly zero. So if you have the information about this zero of visibility, you can get the diameter easily on your object. So example of using uniform disk is okay, measurement of the diameter of stars, basically. So this is a Vinci observation. of a giant star. And basically you have, I think you have here different models, but one of it, I think it's the one that is on top here, is a uniform disk. So you see that it explains quite well the visibility in general, but you have a slight difference with higher spatial frequency. So which means the star itself is not exactly a uniform disk. And another example of use of uniform disk to interpret interferometric data is this famous observation of ellipsoidal star, because it's flattened because of rotation. And they basically used a uniform disk model, which is elongated, to model this star. So almost the last model you will use a lot is a ring model. So ring model, you will say, okay, what's what kind of object has a ring shape? So I will show it here, later. But basically, the visibility function of this ring model is a Bessel function of 0 order. So it's quite easy to compute also. An example application is this observation, which is made on a nova explosion. So in a nova, you basically have this explosion, and then the central, the emission of matter is very strong during a very short time, and then it stops very, very sharply. So basically, you have a very thin shell of material which expands after the explosion. Okay, so this is typically a case where you can use this kind of ring model to model the system. Another example is also in AGNs. So you have some observation with HST which show that you have some, okay, this is a starburst ring around the center of a galaxy, okay? And if you look at the scale, this is quite large scale structure, okay? So this is for one galaxy, one AGN, but on another AGN, you have people who used interferometry to show that you have similar structure, so ring-like structure around the core of the AGN, but this time it's not starburst, but it's dust sublimation ring, which is around the central black hole of the AGN. And if you look at the difference here, this is 17 arcseconds, this is 1 milliarcsecond, so it's 1,000 times, 10,000 times smaller. Okay. So from a ring, you can add up many rings which are concentrical, and if you make a very big number of rings, then you can model whatever profile with this kind of model. So this is what is called the Hankel function, which is just integral of the intensity with many rings which are here with this Bessel function. So example of application is this, for example, for special types of star. This is a LBV star, so luminous blue variable star, which has a quite complex shell around. And these people use this Hankel function to model the profile of the shell around the star, which at some wavelength has basically a shape which looks like a Gaussian shape, but at some wavelength you see that you have these bumps here, which look so more or less like a Gaussian shell plus some ring around. So you have a way to really reconstruct the profile, the shape profile of your object with this kind of measurements. And the last one, if you tried all models and cannot manage to do anything with any of it, then you're left with trying with an image of your object. And to do that, you need the brick to do that, which is just a pixel. So you have also expression of the visibility function for a pixel if you want to do this Fourier transform of the image. Okay. So this is a little bit early to speak about that, so I won't speak about it. But what you have to remember is that you have quite a lot of things to do already without any physics to just start to try to understand the measurements you do with an interferometer, because you can have rings and uniform disks, and I mean, depending on the object you will observe. And this is what you will try to do today, to understand what are the properties of all these different functions.